Hey everybody, welcome to Move the Sticks, presented by Old El Paso. DJ, Bucky, and Rhett together. We normally start off the show, guys, by jumping right into it and getting to a Monday night affair, which we are going to get to. It was an awesome game between the Chiefs and the Eagles. But we have some breaking news as we're getting cranked up here. So I figure we start there. Buck, I'll give you the news right now. Matt Canada, he's out. Mike Tomlin decides to make the move. He said it was his choice and his choice alone. But they are looking, or actually I should say they've found a new offensive coordinator on staff. Mike Sullivan's going to end up calling the plays for him. So Matt Canada is out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a little surprised that, look, you can make the move at this point of the season. There are plenty of times where people talked about Matt Canada not getting the job done, the offense not having rhythm. I'm just curious as to why. What was the tipping point? What was it about what he saw in the Cleveland game that led him to make the move? I think it's unfortunate for the Steelers in the midst of a playoff run. I don't know if these things ever really work out when you kind of change the play caller in the middle of the season. You're doing something where you're basically kind of playing the game with somebody else's team on Madden. So you have a playbook that's not your playbook. You're trying to shift the calls and do all these other things. I just think it's very difficult when you have a young quarterback trying to figure it out with now a new voice in his head. We'll see if this pays off. The defense is still going to determine how far the Steelers go. They can only hope the offense has a little spark by making this move.
Yeah, I think about a few things. Unfortunately, relating this back to college ball a little bit. I've been calling games for a team that had a midseason offensive coordinator change this season. And look, I think what was clear in a lot of this is that there's no wholesale changes here, right? I mean, what you can try to do here is create small little changes that foster bigger improvement over time. Now, the problem for the Steelers is they don't have a ton of time left here. But what's clear is they are not nearly explosive enough to compete right now. You're talking about a team that has 31 explosive plays this year. You know how many the Dolphins have? 81. And now we know they're not nearly what the Dolphins are, but that 50 play difference, that's way too wide of a margin, right? You know who's the only team that's better than the Steelers in explosive, or the only team, well, actually the Steelers are the worst, but the Panthers are 32. And we talked about the personnel there with the Panthers, but can't we all agree, DJ, that the Steelers have much better personnel target-wise than the Panthers? So when you look at that comparison, there's got to be a way to foster bigger change with explosive plays and pushing the ball down the field. That's kind of where I sit on that.
Yeah, and this is, it's interesting because a lot of people said this will never happen. And why do you say this will never happen? It's because Pittsburgh Steelers don't do this. You think about the number of general managers and head coaches they've had over the years. They don't make changes. This is the first time they've made an in-season coaching change since 1941. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute since they've done it. So they actually did. It shows you the desperation that they have. I went back and pulled up my Kenny Pickett report, guys. So let's go back and look at what he was coming out, and let's see how the offense should fit around him. Obviously, wore the two gloves, a wide base thrower. He's really quick getting to number 3 in his progression. So that's one of the things that was a real strength of his, 1 to 2 to 3, very fast. He was accurate. He could extend plays and create some plays with his athleticism, had good pocket awareness. His hands did separate in traffic a little bit, so you're worried a little bit about the fumbles there. Does not have a big arm, a drive arm, a big velocity arm. So maybe some of those explosives you're thinking, that's not going to be coming on drive throws, hole shots, deep in cuts, power in the football. But what he can do, Buck, is he can layer the ball over the top with touch. That's what he does really well. So to me, it's, can you get him in a situation where you get a guy's out in the route, let him work through progressions quickly, get the ball out of his hands, and then maybe take some shots over the top, those kind of bucket throws, as opposed to those drive throws. That's not really what he did. And I would add also, going back and watching the tape this morning, Buck, the screen game, they're awful at it. They try it. I mean, their offensive line's not great, so they try and use a bunch of screens. They're not good at it. So I would tee it up to you on two things. What do you think the offense should look like? And as somebody who's been around some of the best screen coordinators in the league and played against some of the screen coordinators, what's the key to being a good screen team?
Well, the offense, man, when I think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think it has to be an offense that complements the defense. So I would say it needs to be run heavy. I think you have to make sure that both backs are involved because both guys bring a little bit of something. Najee Harris is maybe the lead back doing the inside stuff, Warren being able to get out and make the big plays. But then it has to go through to some of those wide receivers. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, they have two quality playmakers on the outside. They need to get their hands on the ball. In essence, when you think about the screen game, what I would say is there has to be something that is emphasized and that is really a focal point. This is a big mauler, masher type offensive line. That's not really going to be their thing. They're better when they can just come off the ball and knock people around and see if they can just kind of play big boy football. They can mix in some screens, but I think when you got big Broderick Jones and those guys, I'm not necessarily trying to get them on the perimeter move. I'm trying to get them to move the furniture and rearrange the furniture in the living room.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what these changes look like. Again, it's unheard of for the Steelers to make in-season coaching moves. That shows you the desperation that they have. Go ahead, Rhett. You got something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I got fooled. I got fooled in the preseason by the Steelers. Watching that game against the Falcons, those couple of drives they had, it was incredible. I mean, the rhythm that they were moving, they were using Najee Harris. They were using Jalen Warren. You had Darnell Washington out there blocking like a sixth offensive lineman. And then Kenny was, like, as you said, DJ, dropping them in the bucket to George Pickens. And then I'm like, holy smokes, I got to get all these guys in my fantasy team. And it's been a disaster. But what I'm saying is that part of it, like those things we're talking about here, they have shown that they can work for this offense. And so finding a way to recreate some of that rhythm and some of that flow and some of that scripting of those types of plays within that scheme feels like you can find a path forward to some offensive success here, much more than they've had.
Yeah, well, they also need to evaluate Kenny Pickett. You know, this is year 2 for him, so you want to be able to get a fair evaluation. The way this thing has looked around him, even though we think they have some players on the perimeter, it hasn't worked to get a good evaluation of him. Maybe he isn't the guy. Maybe that's something they're going to try and determine here on the back half of the season and change things up a little bit, because they got to be able to evaluate him to make a decision going into the off season. All right, let's get things going here. It's time for the Monday night recap presented by Old El Paso, and we got a heck of a game to get to. Rhett, I'll open the floor. Just the biggest takeaway from the Eagles win last night.
Well, the Chiefs had a much better chance, should have had a much better chance to come down and win that game. Drops, man. Drops for the Chiefs. I mean, like, look, you come down, it's a tight game. These are two really good teams. It went back and forth. Obviously, the Chiefs built the lead. Eagles made the comeback. And I think a lot of that is to be expected with these teams. But you can't have those drops in critical situations. I mean, Justin Watson has, 3 of them, including that 4th and 25 that they probably should have converted. I'll get to the Eagles part of that here in a second, but those drops were bad. And then I had visions, and obviously the MVS one was huge. That's a surefire touchdown. Can't put it out there any better than Patrick Mahomes did. But I don't know about you guys, and Bucky, I'll come to you on this too. Like, I had visions of Shaq Barrett and JPP harassing Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl in those last couple of drives. And I think it was a rough night for Donovan Smith, but I know the Eagles can get after you as good as any pass rush in the league, but they got to be better when the game's on the line right there, both in protecting Mahomes and then the receivers coming through and making plays for Mahomes, because MVS wears it. Kelsey wears it a little bit with drops, and then certainly Watson does too.
Well, I mean, this is a unit that leads the league in drops. They're number 1 in drops in the National Football League. And so this is not a surprise. This is kind of a theme that we've talked about since week 1. They don't have any premier playmakers on the outside of Travis Kelsey. And Travis Kelsey is older, so you can depend on him to do certain things, but he's not going to be the phenomenal guy that gives you the explosive plays like he used to in his younger days. So if I am Andy Reid, I'm looking at this offense and I'm trying to figure out, like, how are we going to get this done? DJ, we talked about the screen game in the previous block, talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I think they have to go to maybe a little dink and dunk, more of the running backs doing some things, trying to play, I don't know, maybe singles and doubles, not home runs, because right now I don't believe that they can depend on the people on the outside. I think the passing game now has to work inside out. Travis Kelsey, the running backs, then the wide receivers have to be maybe the 3rd and 4th option in some of these progressions, because they're not getting it done right now.
Well, I'm conflicted because I looked at it and say, okay, why are they not being more aggressive in the passing game. And part of me saying, well, obviously you see these drops now, right? They lead the league in drops, as you guys mentioned. The other part of me is the point that Rhett brought up. I don't think they're very good on the outside of the offensive line. I mean, first of all, golly, man, you talk about holding. No. Holy moly. Not even on the outside, on the inside. Creed Humphrey just hugging Jalen Carter out there. It was that was interesting going back and watching the tape of that one. But I don't think that they have trust in their receivers, and I don't know they have trust in their offensive line to be chucking it all over the place. And they're kind of playing, and in some ways, this is the greatness of Andy Reid. We think about the high-flying offense. He knows he's got a really good defense this year, and he's not being arrogant enough to say, well, we're just going to play like we've always played offensively. He's saying, well, for us to win games right now, with what we're missing on the outside and maybe not so great at the tackle position offensively, we got to run the ball. We're going to try and play close games, and Mahomes is so unbelievable. He's going to make those 2 or 3 plays, which, as you guys mentioned, he did. He made the plays at the end. They just didn't catch the ball. So I think that's their formula. They're still going to be there at the end. But I will say, Buck, I'll get over to you on this one. Does it matter home field advantage whether Miami plays in Kansas City or whether that game is in Miami?
I think it matters a little bit. I think it matters for the Dolphins just because having played last year in Kansas City when the Jaguars came to town in the divisional round, the weather is cold, it's kind of mucky, the grass is thick, and it makes it more of a mudder track than one for your thoroughbreds to get out there. If you're the Miami Dolphins, you absolutely want the game at home. Now, being warm and sunny and all that, it also allows Patrick Mahomes to be at his best, but you certainly don't want to have to go to Kansas City and have them play. Because I think Kansas City has always been able to play at home. They dominate at home in the postseason. So, get it up out of Arrowhead, make them go on the road, and see if you can have better luck against Pat Mahomes and company doing it in those circumstances.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I would flip it over to the Eagles side of things. Rhett, when you look at the Eagles defensively in the first half, they're getting gashed a little bit in the run game. They made their adjustments. Give them a lot of credit for that. They shut that down in the second half. And even though, man, they should have been popped for a big play that might have cost them the game down the field, I thought they had the right balance of being physical, being aggressive, but then also, hey, let's keep the ball in front of us and let's rally and tackle. I thought it was a good game plan, especially in the second half defensively. And then offensively, Jalen Hurts does what really good quarterbacks do in terms of when the money time is there, when you need to make that throw, he makes that throw. And then, using his legs a little bit more than maybe we anticipated with his knee situation.
Yeah, I mean, he and DeAndre Swift both with 12 carries in this game, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I appreciated the run game mixed in there a little bit. I still think they could do more of that, right? And to help out, help set more things up. But that throw to Devontae Smith that we just were looking at right there, that was, I mean, look, when you got to have it, and that's big time to be able to count on your quarterback and your wideouts to complete that type of play. The one thing that I would say on the Eagles defense, and it's great to be able to go back and look at this stuff in a win. Bucky, did you watch those last couple of plays? The defense, I mean, they said there had to be a miscommunication on the MVS free runner right down the middle. I mean, he had a guy trail. He had both safeties come down. They're triple teaming Travis Kelce 10 yards down the field while MVS is just running, like his hair's on fire down the middle of the field. And then they covered no one on that 4th and 25. Like that should have been a completion to Watson. They had 8 guys in coverage. They didn't cover anybody. You got to go back and because that stuff can come back and really.
Yeah. It absolutely can come back to bite him. And I think that's the challenge and trick of dealing with Pat Mahomes and that crew. Pat Mahomes is so good. He can buy time. He can fit balls into tight windows, and you just can't cover the field. The one on MVS, you can't allow it to get over the top. You got to make sure you keep it in front. And I understand all the attention on Travis Kelce, but everyone has to have some awareness. Somebody has to be deeper than the deepest. And then the one for Watson, that is the one where he just kind of tried it down to the sticks and said, I guess I'll turn around here. I'm open. And it was a dart. It was right on. It hit him right in the face mask. I mean, it was a great throw by Pat Mahomes. The Philadelphia Eagles have to be more aware. They got to be more cognizant of where the sticks are. You can't allow it to be that easy for Pat Mahomes.
All right, guys, let's get into the AFC playoff picture. As you look at it right here, you got the division leaders with the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Jags, and the Dolphins right there in the wild card spots. You've got 2 from the AFC North with the Browns and the Steelers, and then the Houston Texans crashing the party as well. But I want to talk those 4 teams in the hunt. You've got the Bills, the Colts, the Broncos, and the Bengals. And I think this answer is different from what we would have answered last week. It has changed a lot due to injuries and what we saw from a couple of these teams. But Buck, I'll get over to you. With those 4 teams in the hunt, which one are you most confident in that's going to make their way to the tournament?
Most confident, it goes down to quarterback play. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I'm going to go with Josh Allen being able to figure it out because he is the one guy that we know can get hot and he can put the team on his back. We've seen it time and time again. It may not be pretty for the Buffalo Bills, but if Josh Allen has to win a one-game scenario to get in, you can put your money on him. And so with this offense, with them maybe discovering a little bit of a running game, you saw Joe Brady lean into that a little bit with James Cook having success, Josh Allen being able to get some of those quick rhythm throws. I am willing to bank on the Buffalo Bills kind of backdooring their way into the tournament over the rest of the field.
Yeah, if they continue to play the way they did last week on offense against a good Jets defense and that trend line stays pointed upwards, then I would absolutely agree with you there. But I mean, I don't think we can argue the fact that the team that's playing the best, most consistently right now is the Denver Broncos. And they seem to have found the formula with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, maybe not doing things the way that both of them, have done them, really successfully in the past, but finding that path forward together. The connection between Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton, I think, is huge right now. Obviously, you saw that with that late game score, this past week and another win for the Broncos. Their defense is obviously playing a lot better. And the patience we talked about on the pod on Monday, I think is really big that they have exercised with the construction of that team, with the coaching staff on that team. And it seems to be paying some dividends. They're playing some good ball right now. I know the margin for error still feels pretty small there. As it does with a lot of these teams that are even in that wild card picture, like the Browns feel like their margin for error is really small with the quarterback situation. And there's a few others in there as well. But I feel like the Broncos are going to be in this thing if they keep this up here down the stretch.
Yeah, I pulled up their schedule, Rhett, and these next 2 weeks are big. They play Cleveland
They're huge.
At home, and then they're at Houston. So those 2 games, Cleveland, Houston, because after that, they've got a couple games with the Chargers. They've got a Raiders. They've got a Patriots mixed in there. And then you have Detroit, which will be a tough one. But there's a way. If we're saying 9 wins is what it's going to take, there's definitely a path you could say with the Denver Broncos, provided they handle their business in these next 2 games, that they can get to those 9, maybe 10 wins. What a comeback that would be if they were to make their way into the postseason.
No
the team, I feel like we don't ever talk about on here. We haven't talked about them much at all, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Buck, to me, Shane Steichen, I think, is a really, really good football coach, and they're kind of just hanging around. They haven't been talked about. They're just kind of hanging around. But I feel like that's still a team that could make their way into the tournament.
They absolutely can make their way. Shane Steichen has done a great job, maybe one of the best coaching jobs that we've seen, because this is a team that lost their starting quarterback early in Anthony Richardson. They've been able to kind of work around some of the limitations that they have on offense when Gardner Minshew's there. Defensively, Gus Bradley and that defense is taking advantage of opportunities. They're mixing in a bunch of young guys. They're still good up front, and they're making it happen. But yeah, a very competitive Indianapolis Colts team has made life difficult on their opponents, and they also are primed and ready to get back into the tournament because their running game with Jonathan Taylor being able to kind of carry the load as the workhorse, they can give people problems.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up with this one on the Colts, guys. Tampa Bay, this is their schedule coming up. Tampa, Tennessee, who's made a quarterback change this year. Cincinnati, who's made a quarterback change this year. Pittsburgh, who's made a coordinator change this year. Atlanta, who's made a change and then made another change at the quarterback position. Vegas, who's made a change at the quarterback position. And then they finish up with Houston. That is a very friendly schedule for the Indianapolis Colts to be the team that nobody talks about, and we wake up going into Week 17 and go, how in the world are the Colts here? Yeah, they have it all in front of them. It's lined up quite well for the Indianapolis Colts. All right, let's switch over to the NFC. That is the AFC teams we're buying there in the hunt. You look at the NFC, the division leaders, man, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles, Lions, Niners, and Saints. And then the wild card, you've got the Cowboys, who've been playing well, the Seahawks, and the Minnesota Vikings with Josh Dobbs. But the 4 in the hunt we're going to focus on: Green Bay, the Rams, You look at the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It feels weird after we do the AFC. Then you come over to this one, and you got everybody at 4 and 6 in that group. But Buck, of those 4, which one are you buying as potentially closing that 2-game gap and getting into the postseason?
Go Pack Go. The Green Bay Packers being able to kind of get into the tournament. We talked about their defense yesterday. They're talented enough to be able to do it. Can Joe Barry dial it up and be a little more aggressive to give them some turnovers, to give this offense some short fields and some prime scoring chances? Yeah, because if their defense plays and they play lights out, they certainly can kind of get into the tournament. Jordan Love has shown that he can make some plays. He's beginning to get his confidence, and their young playmakers on the outside are also finding that chemistry and connection with him. If the defense plays well enough, I would expect to see the Green Bay Packers find their way into the tournament.
Hold on a second, Buck. I thought we just said in the AFC it was all about quarterback play. And if that's the case, then it's got to be the Los Angeles Rams, right? Play. I mean, Matthew Stafford is the guy in this group, right? And the Rams, as long as you get Cooper Kupp, if this ankle sprain isn't a big deal, you find a way to get him back healthy again. And he and Puka Nacua, of course, and you get some splash plays, from Tutu Atwell in there. And they keep finding a way to piece together some run game. And I know the Kyron Williams injury certainly hurt him because he was on a roll there. But I just feel like if it's quarterback and if it's coach and if it's play caller, man, out of that group, I'm trusting the LA Rams to find a way to at least stay alive here and see what happens with Minnesota if they start trailing off. And, I know Pete Carroll said that Geno Smith looks like he might be good to go, for this week, on a short week for the Seahawks after, he was banged up a little bit. But, man, if that starts creeping up here a little bit, that affects his play. You could see, and then, who knows what happens with Dobbs in Minnesota down the stretch. So that 6-7 spot feels vulnerable.
All right, it's time for our rookie draft. And before we get to this week's draft, we can look back to last week. Solid week. I needed a good, nice week here, and I got it with Gibbs and Dell giving me some points. Well, Levis got me 1 point as a second quarterback. Rhett got the quarterback points with Stroud and picked up a couple singles with Charbonnet and Kincaid. Buck, you got shut out, man. Let's start right there. This is a big week for you. I don't know. Do you guys have a team meeting this week to try and get you back on track here in the rookie draft? What are we doing?
Have to.
Yeah, every championship team has some kind of adversity before they kind of get on track. So this was just our adverse moment. But now we're back on track. We had a little team meeting, players only. We got it all out of our system. We're back on track this week. We guarantee it.
Yeah, that was much needed there. I want to get your comments, though, on one of the guys who got me some points last week, which was Tank Dell. Stole him from Rhett. I knew he was going to take him, so I ended up getting Tank Dell from Houston. He has another big week, and I was going back through my notes on him, draft notes, and Buck, I said Marquise Brown was the comparison. He's in the slot. He's sudden. He can accelerate through the ball. He's got very confident hands, which we've seen over the last couple weeks. Don't underestimate guys that can catch the football when you're evaluating wideouts. He can climb the ladder, go up and play above the rim. A lot of home runs, and he's got polish. Now, he's 165 pounds, a little over 5'8". He only ran 4.49, but trust me, and you can see it on the NFL field, he plays a heck of a lot faster than 4.49. But my question to you, Buck, we've talked about this a little bit, but do you care anymore about size when it comes to wideouts, seeing these little guys make plays like this every week?
Well, I mean, look, man, I feel like we're going to have to go back and talk about that because a guy like this dominating the way that he's dominating certainly changes the narrative. And then you think some of the other top receivers that we've seen, the slender guys have kind of made their mark of late. And so as much as we love thinking that we can get the big corner to knock them around, you're seeing that savvy play callers can create opportunities for those guys to get free releases. And when you see Tank Dell just on that little montage, the stop-start quickness, his ability to create separation, his natural hands, DJ, I think now over everything, it's all about the skills more so than the size. Give me the skill pass catcher, and I'll deal with all the other stuff because the skills are winning in a major fashion today.
Well, I mean, look, we just talked about it at the top of the show. Like, yeah, Watson and MVS got open, but could they hang on to the football? No. And so, like, what good does that ultimately do you? So Tank Dell can do it all. And look, I think something that Bucky mentioned is obviously really key here, because he's found a play caller that understands his skill set and understands the skill set of his quarterback, and an evaluation front office team there in Houston that kind of knew what this bunch might be able to do together. And look, Tank and Nico Collins are the only only team with 2 wide receivers in the top 15 in average depth of target. They're up over 14. Like they are pushing the ball down the field, and they are feeding right into what these guys' strengths are, especially with Tank. And so I just think that it's also probably a reason why we've seen this resurgence in the Texans run game here these last 2 weeks too, right? Devin Singletary's been over 100 in the last 2, probably seeing, safeties aren't creeping up because you can't with Tank Dell. And so I think this is going to continue to serve the Texans well. Tank's terrific. And on your question, DJ, about size, I mean, look, if you can get open and catch the ball, who cares, right? I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah. No, to me, it's a tiebreaker thing. It's not, you don't eliminate them. It's a tiebreaker thing. Look, as a quarterback, if they're close, I want the bigger guy. I got more room for error. I've got a big catch radius. He can go make some things happen after the catch physically that you wouldn't be able to do as a smaller guy. But my thing is we have to get past okay, he's a much better receiver, but he's small. So I'm going to take a lesser receiver who's big and put him over him. I think that you got to rethink that when you're stacking your board as we get to the draft. It's a tiebreaker is where the size comes into play. All right, let's get this week's draft going. I've got the first pick today, followed by Bucky and then Rhett. I'm not going to waste a lot of time with the first pick. I feel like C.J. Stroud is clearly the top rookie quarterback, so I think I've got to go there with the first pick, see if I can't get those 3 points, Buck.
Hey, man, look, I'm with you, man. I'm going to break one of my own personal rules when it comes to fantasy. I'm going to pick against my own team. So I'm going to go with Tank Dell. Come on down. Even though you're playing against my mighty Jacksonville Jaguars this weekend, right now it's personal in this fantasy thing. I got to make sure that I get a nice seat in the tournament. So Tank Dell, I'm going to take you early.
Dang, you guys are really coming after me. You're really coming after my picks here pretty hard. All right,
Texans.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
All right. I just, guys, this was kind of a tough one for me here I get my choice of running backs, obviously. Jahmyr Gibbs has been playing so well lately for the Lions, but I still feel like Bijan, against the Saints in a game at home. Screw it. Now I'm going Lions. I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs. So give me Gibbs with the first pick there. And then with my back-to-back pick, as for quarterbacks at this point, man, this is a tough one. It really is. You know what? Give me Will Levis. Give me Will Levis taking on the Panthers. They're struggling. That's where I'm going with this one.
Oh, right. Okay. Thanks, Red. I'll squirt a little mayo in my coffee right over here. Make sure I put a little mayo in that. Make me feel a little better that you took Will Levis, because
you
now
going DTR?
I'll take Bijan Robinson since you don't. No, I mean, since you don't want, I'll take Bijan Robinson. I'll live with the running back that he's not good enough. He was only the number 1 pick for like 6 weeks in our drafts, but I'll take him. You come on. They didn't want you. I'll take him.
All right, Buck, you said you broke a rule and you took a player the Jags are playing against this week. Is it okay if I break the rule back to back? I'm going to go Zay Flowers and Keaton Mitchell, Sunday nighter against the Chargers here. Those are my options. I mean, look, I think Justin Herbert's going to score some points and maybe you find your way into a shootout, but the Chargers' pass defense has not been great, so Zay Flowers is the pick there, and then Keaton Mitchell, maybe he pops one. So I'm going to double up on the Ravens there with my picks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I like that. I like that. That's nice. I mean, Battle of LA. You got the Chargers taking on the thing. I'm going to keep it in LA. I make it LA centric. Let's go DTR. Let's go with DTR. The Browns starting quarterback had a game-winning drive. Let's see if he can build upon that and help me get into the winner's circle. DTR, come on down. Your team beat mighty USC. Should be feeling good. More confidence.
Okay. So I got to go with the pass catcher here. And I don't trust the way that Josh Dobbs has been using Jordan Addison, even though they're going up against the Bears. You guys obviously took Zay there. Tank Dell out.
Puka.
So could go back to the Puka well against the Cardinals.
He's off of Puka. He's so in love with Tank Dell.
Give it to me, baby.
He doesn't even remember Puka.
Give me Puka.
I
I'll
know,
go back
was
to my
the old
roots.
flame. He was an old flame.
Going back to my roots, baby. Puka to close it out.
Old flame, yeah.
Wow.
I feel good about this. You guys are going
and
down.
Buck, you know what? He's listening to the song, We Don't Even Talk Anymore. He's got the Boys to Men going in his soundtrack right now about him and Puka.
Yeah.
That is
Still
terrible.
love you, Puka.
All right. Well, we'll
Still
see how
love
this thing shakes out when we recap it next week. Still more to come today, though. We're going to preview the Thanksgiving games, which are there's some good Thanksgiving games. We'll jump into those right after this. There is nothing better than football on Thanksgiving. Did I go early there? I don't think I was up. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the games, the matchups on Thanksgiving. Nothing better than a little turkey in football. We've got the Packers and the Lions. That's going to be on Fox, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Cowboys hosting the Commanders. That is a 4:30 Eastern kick. And then on NBC, it's Niners Seahawks, 8:20 p.m. Eastern. So a great day of football, some intriguing matchups, including that first one there, guys. Buck, I'll get over to you. Lions, never mind. Thanksgiving Day lineup. Oh, you want to do that again? Sure. Sorry about that. All right, well, it's an exciting slate of games on Thanksgiving. Nothing better than a little turkey and football. We've got a triple header: Packers, Lions, Commanders, Cowboys, 49ers, Seahawks. The first kick is at 12:30, followed by a 4:30 and an 8:20. So you've got football all day long on Thanksgiving. Looking forward to it. And we've got you covered on NFL Network starting at 7 a.m. Eastern with Good Morning Football, followed by Game Day Morning. We've got Game Day Highlights. That's going to roll from 3:30, and it's going to go follow up the Washington-Dallas game at 7:30, and then Game Day Highlights following the San Francisco-Seattle game at 11:30. So all your football needs going to be covered throughout the day on NFL Network. All right, let's jump into these games here. Let's start, first of all, the Lions and the Packers. Buck, Lions-Packers. I saw the Packers last week. Big win for them. Jordan Love, best game as a pro. But I feel like against this Lions team, he might need to even play better if they're going to go on the road and win this one.
Everyone knows how the Lions play on Thanksgiving Day. Like, they kind of turn it up a bit. And this is a time where everyone is excited to watch the Lions because they've been playing really, really well. This is a showcase game. So the Packers are not only going to have to match the intensity and the energy, they're going to have to match the execution. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to get it done. The Lions have a balanced offense. They can run it. They can throw it. Defensively, they've been really playing well when it comes to being able to generate sacks and splash plays. To me, I think the Green Bay Packers are stepping into a buzzsaw. I think they're poking the hornet's nest, and we may see the Lions at their best, and we've seen how good they can be when they play, bring their A game.
Well, I really like how this matchup is trending based on, the way the Packers played last week, talking about Jordan Love, having his best game, but still leaving plays out there means there's still, obviously room to grow. You want to figure that part of it out so you can, take advantage of those great opportunities to push the ball down the field. Talked about how we really like the Packers, young wide receiver core, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, all contributing a week ago. But for me, it just feels like the Lions just have too much. They're too good up front. Too many options in the backfield and obviously out wide. And now if Jamison Williams keeps coming along and they can have that threat of those shot plays with him, obviously Laporta work in the middle of the field, man, I just think the Lions have too many answers for the Packers here. So that's kind of where I'm leaning on this one. But this will obviously be I feel like this could be a really fun competitive game here to open up the Thanksgiving slate, DJ.
Yeah, to me, I'm with you guys. I like the Lions in this one. The reason why I like the Lions is because of the middle of the field. Seeing them up close last week, you think about the middle of the field, the Chargers were able to attack it. You had big plays of tight ends. You had a drop over the middle of the field by Parham on a 4th down. You had another one working in the middle of the field with Keenan Allen that wasn't able to haul in. But when you look at the Lions, they're built inside out. You've got Amon-Ra who's going to be doing his work in the slot. You've got Laporta at tight end. I think they're going to be able to wear them out in the middle of the field. So that's why I think the Lions at home, that's a tough matchup. Short week for the Green Bay Packers. I like the Lions to win that ball game. How about Commanders and Cowboys? Rhett, what are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, I'm just looking for consistency with Dallas, right? I mean, like they've been playing well here the last few weeks, and that connection between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, I think, is what ultimately wins this game for the Cowboys. And obviously, you'd love to see him continue to try to, run the football and have that commitment to try to, not let Dak throw it 40 times in this game. But when they are targeting CD and when he is rolling the way that he has over the course of the last month, that is hard to stop. And I don't know if the Commanders have anything in the secondary to deal with him that way. And obviously they sacked, Tommy DeVito a ton this last week with the Giants, but I don't know if that's all on the Commanders. There's probably a fair amount of that on the Giants and on the young quarterback hanging on to the football a little bit. I don't think Dak's going to do that. As long as they can protect him a little bit, I think he and CeeDee Lamb put up some serious points in this game. Buck?
I think this is a dangerous game for the Dallas Cowboys. Watching the Washington Commanders come off that embarrassing loss to the New York Giants, they've been the butt of jokes all week. And so going into a short week, a rivalry game, and we know that the Washington Commanders typically, when they play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, it's been some epic games. I think this is one where the Commanders rise up and play maybe a little bit above their head. Look for the Commanders to maybe knock off the Cowboys in a surprising upset on Turkey.
Whoa. Buck calling a shot there. How are they going to block Dallas, Buck? That's my question. I just don't see how they're going to block them.
That too.
Look, man. I can't tell you how it's going to get it done. I just can tell you what the result is. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it's going to look like. I have no evidence based on how they performed against the Giants to be able to outline a plan for how they're going to get it done. I'm just telling you, at the end of the day, I don't need to show my work. I'm just giving you an answer. I'm just giving you an answer like I used to do in my old science classes in high school.
Okay.
I like it. Hey, put it out there. They better be ready, though, because this is anytime you're in a division game, it's going to be a competitive game. I think you're right. It could be a close. I'll be shocked, though, if they win. Keep it close, maybe. I'll give you that. But I can't see the Dallas Cowboys losing this game. Do we know who's singing, Rhett? Who's singing? Who we got for halftime of this thing? We know?
Oh, gosh. No idea.
We're not bringing Scott Stapp back? No?
No, I don't. Is Creed? Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Creed only
Cowboys
goes
by
Minnesota.
30.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Look, if Dolly Parton's playing, Buck, you want to rethink this thing?
Oh.
Otherwise, you've probably been drinking more than
H2O
from science class.
I can't rethink it. I just saw Dolly. She was just in Tennessee. I thought she was just at the volunteer game.
She's making rounds, man. She's making rounds.
Rocky Top, and then there she's going to be with America's team. I don't know. I think she's stretched too thin. I don't know if it has the same impact for the Cowboys.
Dolly's a star.
She's going to have to change her song. She's going to have to change her lyrics, though, after this game. It's going to be 35-5 is what that score is going to be. Not going to be 9-5 on that one. We got to add some more numbers in there.
Nice.
There we go. Rhett humming along with us. Let's get to the last game here, the nightcap. Great divisional matchup, San Francisco, Seattle. Now, this one I feel like could really go either way. This is going to be a physical, competitive game up there in Seattle. What do you think, Buck?
Yeah, it depends on Geno Smith and his availability. If he plays, the Seahawks certainly have a good chance to be able to get this done. But I'll be honest with you, man, having watched the Niners up close and personal after they made the move to get Chase Young, I don't know who knocks off this team, because defensively, man, they can come at you, and they can come at you with waves of talent at the line of scrimmage. Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, you have Eric Armstead. They're able to control the line of scrimmage. And then offensively, Brock Purdy is silencing all the naysayers that were doubting his game. This team is humming. They're rolling. I think they continue to roll against the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and the attrition here, I think, is a big deal for the Seahawks, not just with Geno Smith, but Kenneth Walker. Sounds like he's got a pretty good oblique injury here. That's going to be tough for a running back trying to play without that core, full strength here. And it sounds like he's not going to go on IR, but the oblique, could keep him out here. So Zach Charbonnet steps into the lineup. Does that change, the way that the Seahawks want to attack here? And I know Tyler Lockett's been beat up, but man, I feel like the 49ers are just surging at the right time after that 3-game losing streak in each of their couple of games together. I think that's going to be something to watch here for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, guys. To me, when you look at the 49ers, if you allow them to get into a rhythm early, you allow Brock Purdy to get going early and wear you out in the middle of the field, you've got to pack the middle of the field. You've got to force the ball out at the perimeter. It's easier said than done, but you do that with leverage, you do that with alignment. They have got to force the ball outside. And, Buck, we say this when we're talking about when you're playing against the Niners, pick your poison. I mean, to me, I'm telling my linebackers, guys, if they run the ball on us, we're going to have to rally and tackle, and we lose. But we've got to get our linebackers to get a little bit of depth here. We cannot let Brock Purdy get into that early rhythm like that, or that's going to be a long day, man.
Yeah. Man, it's so difficult to match up with, because if you say, hey, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to line up. We're going to jam the middle of the field. We're going to play man coverage. Well, then they line up in all these quirky formations with running backs out wide, wide receivers in the backfield, tight ends at fullback. You just can't get a line. And then if you decide to play zone, man, they just pick you apart. Throwing over the middle of the field, they'll run it. And if you talk about, hey, I'm going to drop my linebackers back and let them run it, well, the one thing we know, Kyle Shanahan doesn't mind running it. And they'll run for 200-plus yards. They'll let Christian McCaffrey get going. They'll try and start a new streak where he can score touchdowns all over the field. This is a very difficult matchup for any team. And I think with the Seattle Seahawks, if they don't have Geno Smith where they can engage in a bit of a shootout, it's going to be tough for them to keep pace with the Niners.
No doubt. Speaking of the Niners defense, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about the defensive lines of 4 teams I feel like are on a collision course, 2 in the AFC and 2 in the NFC. We'll get to their defensive fronts in that conversation right after this. It's time for Sacks and Quarterbacks presented by Campbell's, and we're looking at defensive fronts here of 4 teams. I thought these were 4 interesting teams that do it differently in terms of how they get after the quarterback and how they play. But man, they have been excellent, and it feels like there's collision courses on the way here. When you look at the NFC, you've got the 49ers and the Eagles. We're going to jump into how those 2 teams play up front. And then the AFC, man, the Baltimore Ravens, what they're doing defensively, as well as the Kansas City Chiefs. The offense hasn't been great. The defense has been outstanding. But let's start, first of all, with the 49ers. Buck, I want to get to you on them. You talked about it. You've talked about it a bunch since Chase Young has gotten there, about the difference that makes. But stylistically, what stands out to you and what makes them so difficult to block?
Well, the superior talent makes them difficult to block. I mean, this is a team. I mean, we talk about Nick Bosa and Chase Young. You talk about high-end talents that were coming in out of Ohio State, and they've lived up to the billing. And then you have Javon Hargrave, who can win his matchups one-on-one. Eric Armstead, who is long, does a great job of pressing the pocket. And then what Steve Wilks has done, he's kind of deviated away from their previous formula. Since Chase Young has come in, we've seen more 5-man defensive lines where they're saying, hey, you're not going to be able to double team our guys. We got one-on-one battles. Our guys are better than your guys, and we're going to get after it. And look, a little tip of the cap to Chris Kasarik and what he does to get these guys going. They just wear you out, man. It's nothing fancy. Couple stunts, some games, but really, my guys are better than your guys, and we're just going to allow them to whoop you over and over again at the point of attack.
Yeah, Buck, I mean, that's been a lot of fun to watch, and certainly a big piece of where the Niners have come from since that 3-game losing streak. You know, Chase Young and Nick Bosa together. Yeah, you talked about the talent, but, getting coached up, by one of the best in Chris Kasarik and being put in a nice plan with Steve Wilks and the way that he's executing and using those guys to the best of their abilities. Obviously, a big reason why I felt like that the 49ers are actually going to get the win over the Seahawks just because of those guys and where they are up front and rushing the passer, DJ. It's just been a lot of fun to watch. And as you talk about, I mean, the playmakers at all the levels there, not just the guys up front, but Fred Warner and obviously what they got going on, in the back end too. So that is a formidable front in defense. And it certainly starts with the way they get after the quarterback.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, and I'll lump the 49ers together with the Eagles, and we've talked about that collision course that's coming between those two teams. These are your true four-man rush teams. I mean, they're not super exotic. They'll mix in a linebacker here or there for a five-man rush, but for the most part, it's their four. They let them attack. With Bosa, you've got the complete package with the power, the quickness, and the technique and polish. Chase Young, going back to their tape, it's all about winning early or winning with power. He's not going to corner like Nick Bosa. They're different style rushers, but very effective. But Armstead can drive you right back into the pocket. You look at Hargrave, he's got some quickness inside. It is just a dominant foursome that they bring to the table. And then as we shift over to the Eagles, that to me, they've got race cars on the outside with burst, technique, and finish. Sweat is an underrated player. Hassan Reddick is a premier player on the edge. Mm-hmm. They can get home with four. Now, they might mix in five a little bit more. They've done it with Sean Desai as their new defensive coordinator. They'll bring the linebackers down there. Sometimes they'll even bring both of them down there and double mug and see if they can create some one-on-ones elsewhere. But it's still about that speed off the edge, and then inside they have a bevy of guys that can throw at you with Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox, as well as the big man from Georgia and Jordan Davis, the other man from Georgia. So those teams in the NFC, Buck, I feel like are more kind of your true four down teams and how they get home kind of in that fashion.
Yeah, they are true four down teams. They really have committed the resources to make sure that they have enough players at the point of attack that they can bring forward and kind of attack you in ways. When we talk about the other conference has a lot more schematics where they're creating those opportunities. But in the NFC, is my guy's better than your guy. I'm going to let my guy beat your guy over and over and over again.
Yeah, I'll flip this thing over to the AFC here and some of the teams that you were mentioning, DJ. I'll start with the Baltimore Ravens because I really feel like they've done a real nice job at exhausting all avenues to find ways to get after the quarterback. Obviously, we mentioned a couple weeks ago about Justin Madubuike and what he has done to bring a real interior presence to that team. It's taken him a couple of years, but man, he's having a breakout season, which is awesome to see. I think you always kind of counted on Odafe Owe being one of those guys that's going to get after the passer. He's got 4 sacks on the season. But man, when I talk about exhausting all the avenues, you go out and you get Jadeveon Clowney late to start this season for your team. And then in week 4, you bring Kyle Van Noy in. Van Noy's got 6 sacks since week 4. He's been a perfect fit for this defense and the way that they want to run things there in Baltimore. And so I love how they're finding ways to supplement their team. And they've been doing this every year, right? Justin Houston, was Calais Campbell. They find ways to continue to be a force in the pass rush. And that's whether that's, through the draft, like we've seen with a couple of different guys, or going out and getting guys who've been tossed aside elsewhere and man, come in and it's been a really good scheme fit, DJ, with what Baltimore wants to do.
This is going to be the most copied scheme. There's going to be a tree here. Mike McDonald's probably going to get a head coaching job pretty soon, but you're going to see teams hire defensive coaches off of this staff from this scheme, because if you look at it from a quarterback standpoint, they're of all these defenses, to me, would be the most difficult to go up against because you don't know where they're coming from. They have a variety of rushers on the outside. You can't climb up in the pocket because they got Michael Pierce, who looks like he's 400 pounds, just pushing the pocket from inside. You've got so many different ways you can win. You talk about Van Noy. Well, you can use him. You can move him around, do different things with him. Owe and Clowney are just, two super explosive edge rushers getting up the field. And then you've got Hamilton, who's an unbelievable blitzer. You've got Queen, who's outstanding as a blitzer. All their second and third level players know how to rush. And talking to Baldy, our buddy Brian Baldinger, he said they spend time, Chuck Smith, who they hired, not only working with their defensive linemen, they work with their blitzers on winning and understanding technique of how to win. And I think that's a little underrated. But they would be the most difficult group to me to face. Then when you flip it over to the Chiefs, Rhett, you watch that defense. Chris Jones is just like, he's a monster. He is, of all these teams, they're the most individual focused of him. Like, he is the one piece. If you say the Jenga piece of these 4 teams, Chris Jones is taken out of that group. That changes everything. Like, he makes everything work. Everything works off him. He's either getting home or he's drawing so much attention it's freeing up others. I like Mike Dana. He's a good player. Karlaftis, solid player. But when you watch them, it is Chris Jones and everybody else.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's clear that Chris
Chris Jones against the world.
Yeah, he's the one that stirs the straw that stirs the drink for sure. But I do think that there is something to be said for those unsung heroes in this, right? The George Karlaftis of the world, the Mike Dana, and then they've got some great speed at the second level too, which I know we talk about a lot. With Willie Gay out there, but I mean, Chris Jones. If you're talking about like pure disruptor out of all the teams that we've mentioned here, I mean, it might be the most difficult to deal with. Like even with Bosa and Young, like I just feel like the way Chris Jones's path to the quarterback is probably the most disruptive. Buck, what do you think?
Yeah, no, because they have given him the freedom on in every play. He can line up wherever he wants to line up to take advantage of the favorable matchup. It makes it very, very difficult for you as an offense to figure out how do we want to set our protections. He is a dominant disruptive player at the point of attack. Spags does a great job of complementing that by bringing exotic pressures from anywhere, meaning second level blitzers coming, corners coming, everyone's coming to create those one-on-ones. And so it's problematic. And then back to DJ's point about Baltimore does it in a clever fashion too. Mike McDonald's done a really good job of bringing, I would say, some of these collegiate schemes to the pros, some of these simulated pressures where it looks like they're bringing 6 or 7, but they're only bringing 4 and dropping out guys late. It is really confusing and confounding quarterbacks and play callers around the league. It is fun to watch all 4 of these teams get after the passer because they all do it in different ways. But I think you can gain an appreciation for every approach that these coordinators are using.
Yeah, I mean, you watch one play in Baltimore, Michael Pierce and Travis Jones both touch the guards and bounce out and are looking for crossers. That's 700 pounds at the second level you have there as they're bringing other rushers. And it's I'm just saying, like, from a quarterback, like you watched Joe Burrow and unfortunately got hurt in that game, but man, his eyes, you don't ever see that from Joe Burrow. His eyes were dropping like it was chaotic. They create a lot of chaos with the way that they call defense. So I do think that's going to be one of the most copied schemes once we get to the offseason with what they're doing. It's impressive. All right, that's going to do it for us today. That was a fun topic. Enjoyed that one. Great show, guys. Good work. We will be back again tomorrow. We'll be right back at it here. But we appreciate you guys watching and listening, and we'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.